Yo, what's up guys? James Carter TV here to give my top 10 wide receivers for the 2014 NFL Draft. This is something I said I was going to do a month ago. I put it off. Let's get it done now. And things have changed since then, so it's kind of good that I waited. But before I get into the top 10 list, make sure if you are new to this channel that you click right up there in that top right corner. That way you are now subscribed to me and you are updated every time I upload a new video. And make sure to follow me on Twitter at James Carter TV for more NFL Draft opinions of mine. Now, with that said, let's get into this top 10 wide receivers for the 2014 NFL Draft. And as I aforementioned in this video, things have changed from a month ago. Okay, from a month ago, number 10. I'm just gonna go from number 10 to number 1. Number 10 wasn't even on there. I wasn't even considering putting it on number 10. I barely knew anything about number 10, but throughout the past month, I've gotten myself educated on number 10. Number 10 is none other than Cody Latimer from the Indiana Hoosiers. That's right, Cody Latimer. Now, you may never heard of this guy. A month ago, 2 months ago, actually 2 months ago, I never heard of him until the Combine. Ever since then, I've been watching film on this guy, and let me tell you, this guy's impressive. He has one of the rare, nowadays, today in the NFL, the size when it comes to wide receivers is actually becoming diminished. And he still has that rare size speed combination, 6'3", 215. He also has the speed there, like I said. But the big problem I have with Cody Latimer is the drops. He's too inconsistent with the drops. And, you know, when you're playing at Indiana, I understand your quarterback may not give it to you right in the breadbasket like some NFL quarterbacks will do, so I'll cut on some slack there. But again, it just shows to me, you know, when there's mental lapses, when your bad quarterback somehow does give you the ball and you can't code onto it, that's kind of concerning for me. I hear some rumors about him, possibly him being, you know, a first-round pick. No, that's too high for me. I have him as a high third-round pick. That's where I have him as. High, late second-round pick in this draft. I have a second-round grade on him, but for this draft, considering how much talent there is in this draft, I think you don't take him into the late second, early third, but I have a second-round grade on him, if that makes any sense. But the thing is, for this draft, I have 40 first-round grades. I really do, but you can only have 32 first-round, you know, the picks. So that's why this, for example, that way you can understand my psyche and what is going through my mind. I have a second-round grade on Cody Latimer, but there can only be so many second-round picks. So I would wait until the third round to get him because there's plenty of other guys you could take him. But I hear some stuff about him being early second to, I think that's too high, but let's see what happens with Cody Latimer. So that'll be an interesting view. But Cody Latimer, number 10. Number 9 for me is none other than Kelvin Benjamin out of Florida State. And I'm sure a lot of you were expecting him to be much higher on this list, but I am not as sold on Kelvin Benjamin as a lot of other people are here in this draft community, if you will. I mean, okay, he has great size, and he has good speed for the size that he has, but there's a lot of character concerns, and they're starting to pop up now. He's a boom or a bust wide receiver. He still needs to complete his game. He's not a solid route runner yet. He's very physical, and you like to see that he can get off the line of scrimmage using that big size and speed. But against these polished NFL corners, will he be able to trick these corners and not only rely on his physical strength, but use his route running skills to beat these cornerbacks? They're going to be much more skilled than anything he's ever faced in his collegiate career. I'm not sold on that, and that's why I have him as a number 9 option. But if he can hone in on those route running skills, and he can do that, and not only rely on his athleticism, but rely on other things as well, then he could be a complete boom, and he could boom into the league, and he'd be great in the league. But the character concerns, as well as those concerns of mine, has him now at number 9 of this list. Number 8, I have Davante Adams out of Fresno State. Now, a lot of people don't like Davante Adams. They say, oh, he was in a spread offense at Fresno State that catered to his strengths and catered to everybody's strengths. And, you know, the production is outlandish, and he's not going to produce like that in the NFL. And I'm not saying he will, but I think there's a lot of potential here. And I think combined with the fact we know he can go over the top, you know he can be a red zone threat, but you know he can also be great in the screen game, because that's basically all they did at Fresno State. Screen game all day, all night long, and he makes people miss. He has the ability to get yards running after the catch, and I like to see that in a guy who's 6'2", 215 himself. You know, so that's pretty good size there, and we already know he has the size, the agility, the quickness to beat cornerbacks. He did it at the collegiate level. He can do it at the NFL level. But again, can he get better? I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure if he's already plateaued, if this is the best year we're going to see Davante Adams. But I saw enough for him to be number 8 on this list. Number 7, I have Allen Robinson out of Penn State. I really like Allen Robinson. I really think this is a guy that's slightly underrated. I have a first-round grade on him myself. I know some teams won't go that high. I think he's only going to go, early second. I think that's the range that he's going to be drafted. But I would take him if I'm the Saints. I keep saying the Saints need a wide receiver, but that's just me. If I'm the Saints, if I'm the Seahawks, if I'm the 49ers, I'm taking a hard look at Allen Robinson out of Penn State. Very reliable hands, very good size, speed, combination there as well. And that's a big thing for me. If you lack in the size department, you better show up in the speed department, because I don't really care how big you are. I mean, I really don't care how big you are, how fast you are. You need to at least have a good combination of both, and Allen Robinson has that for me. And that's why he's number 7 on this list. Number 6 is actually maybe surprising to some of you, Marqise Lee out of USC. Biggest problem I have with Marqise Lee. He had some injuries, this past year, and I know that hurt his production. But when you go from the production he had in 2012 and you go to the production he had in 2013, that's very concerning for me, because in 2012, he was great. He was phenomenal. Maybe you can put some of that on Matt Barkley, who we all know stinks. So maybe we shouldn't. But, Cody Kessler was throwing to Marqise Lee, and there was some inconsistency there. Some mental lapses, a lot of drops, too many drops for Marqise Lee. We know the potential is there. We know the natural talent is there. This is a guy that was being talked about being a top 10 pick coming into this draft class at the beginning of the 2013 season. And yet here we are. He will be lucky to make it in the top 20. He'll be lucky to make it in the top 25 in my opinion. He'll be lucky to make it in the top 25. I think ultimately he will be a first-round pick, but barely. And that's subject to change. I wouldn't be surprised if that changed on draft day. But, again, the natural challenge is there. Can he hone in on that, and can he do a good job doing that? I think he'd be a good fit for Kansas City at 23. I think he reminds me of Jeremy Maclin and Victor Cruz and Pierre Garçon, and that's a guy that Andy Reid would love to have in that offense in Kansas City, because God knows Dwayne Bowe's not a very good number 1 wide receiver, so they could use a Marqise Lee in Kansas City, but he has to reach his potential. Number 5 for me is Jordan Matthews out of Vanderbilt. Now, some of you may be surprised how high Jordan Matthews is on this list, but the fact of the matter is this. He produced at a phenomenal level in the SEC. I mean, we think the SEC is the best conference of football. Well, he produced there each and every year he was at Vanderbilt. He produced phenomenally, if I might add myself. There were some questions about his speed, but he came out in the combine and he ran a 4.48 or 4.47, so there goes the questions about his speed. So really, what's left? I mean, is it his hands? He's a pretty sure pass catcher. He's been catching balls from Austin Carter-Samuels and Jordan Rogers throughout his collegiate career. I'm high on Jordan Matthews. The big questions were his speed. He completely got rid of that at the combine. You saw his speed on debut. Maybe he doesn't play that fast when he's on the field, but you saw the speed. The speed's there. He produced at a phenomenal level at the SEC level. The most prolific wide receiver in SEC history, Jordan Matthews out of Vanderbilt. It's a no-brainer to me that this guy should go in the first round, but I don't know, maybe he's going to fall to the second round. I don't necessarily agree with that. In fact, I emphatically disagree with that. But, hey, whatever team gets him, you're getting a steal in Jordan Matthews. Again, a guy who produced phenomenally at the SEC level throughout his college career. Number 4, I have Odell Beckham Jr. And don't take this as an indictment. I know you already can now know that Brandin Cooks is ahead of Odell Beckham Jr., but don't take this as an indictment. I'm very high on Odell Beckham Jr. I have a top 20 grade on Odell Beckham Jr., but I just like Brandin Cooks better, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But for right now, Odell Beckham Jr., Very good production in a pro-style offense. In Cam Cameron's offense with Zach Menberger at quarterback, you saw everything you wanted to see, and you also saw the athleticism on display at the combine. This guy had a vertical of about 38. You love his hands also. The ball seems to just hit his hands like glue, like mittens. It just stays on there. That's what you like to see out of Odell Beckham Jr., or ODB, as I like to call him. Like I said, top 20 grade on Odell Beckham Jr., but I like Brandin Cooks more, but that's it. Let's get into Brandin Cooks. Brandin Cooks out of Oregon State. I love Brandin Cooks. I absolutely love Brandin Cooks. I have a top 18 grade on this guy. Actually, maybe even higher than that, to be honest, if I keep thinking about it. This is a guy who's 5'9". Okay, yes, he's 5'9", but wow, can this guy run. Woof. This guy's he can run, he's tough, he's mean, he's physical, and he's quick. I mean, he's fast. I mean, there's a difference between being fast and being quick. He's fast and he's quick. I mean, he will run past you, catch the ball, and he'll break away for a touchdown. I mean, that's unbelievable to me. And he'll catch a slant route, take it for 80 yards. That's the potential Brandin Cooks has. Again, though, because he lacks in the size department, you want a quarterback. I mean, you want him to be in a system where if you have a bad quarterback, you don't want him going over the top, because that's not going to help anybody. He's not going to win over the top, on a fade, to win the game. He's not going to do that. But if you have a bad quarterback, get this guy for your bad quarterback, have him run a slant, and then it's going to make your bad quarterback look great, like Geno Smith and the Jets. Get this guy on the Jets, okay? Have Geno Smith throw a little slant, throw a little screen, and then boom, Brandin Cooks goes for 30 yards, and everybody thinks Geno Smith is fixed. Oh, wow, Geno Smith is great all of a sudden. No, he's not. Brandin Cooks is doing the work. Love how tough, mean this guy is. If you saw the play, the breakaway touchdown against Washington, you know what I'm talking about. Wow, what an athletic and magnificent play where he was almost tackled by 5 Washington Huskies, and yet he broke away for a touchdown of about 80 yards. From that moment, I've loved Brandin Cooks, and the more film I watch on Brandin Cooks, the more I love Brandin Cooks. Number 2 for me is Mike Evans out of Texas A&M, and it's actually a pretty close number 2. I'm very high on Mike Evans. I compare him to Vincent Jackson, and in each and almost every sense, he compares to Vincent Jackson to me. I think he's going to come into the league, and I think ultimately 4 years down the road, maybe even less than that, he's going to have the Vincent Jackson type production on whatever team he goes on. Very high on Mike Evans. I mean, we all watched Johnny Manziel. We all saw what Johnny Manziel could do. But the biggest thing, you always saw what Johnny Manziel did. He would just throw the ball up. He would just say, hey, Mike Evans, here you go. Here's the football. Go do something with the football. That's all Johnny Manziel would do half the time. And Mike Evans would always come down with it. There were always questions about Mike Evans' speed. And he came out on the combine, ran a 4.5. And did he play a 4.5? Not really. But he's so physical. You know he's going to beat you over the top. Even if he may not break away after catching the ball, you know he's going to catch the ball. Whoa, excuse me. You know he's going to catch the ball. The football sticks to this guy's hand like glue. Okay, it sticks on there and it's not going anywhere. It's like this guy's wearing stickum. It's like this guy's wearing pine tar. I don't know what it is. But it sticks to his hands. The speed is not a concern for me. It is for some NFL team. But I still see him going top 10. I have a top 10 grade on him. But I have a top 7 grade on him. I love me some Mike Evans, but I love number 1 even more, and that is Sammy Watkins out of Clemson. I have a higher grade on Sammy Watkins than I did Julio Jones coming out of Alabama. I have a lower grade on Sammy Watkins than I did on A.J. Green coming out of Georgia, though. So, in between A.J. Green and Julio Jones. That's pretty good company, though, if you ask me. Very high on Sammy Watkins. I think it's more a complete wide receiver prospect than Julio Jones was coming out of college. I think it's more we're more adverse throughout the route running. What am I trying to say right now? Okay, sorry. He's more adverse with the route running skills, the wide receiver position. He's more adept at that type of thing, at running routes and quickness and crispness, running his routes. I like that more than Julio Jones. He's not as physical as Julio Jones. Julio Jones will beat you over the top, but he's as fast as Julio Jones, and he's more skilled, a more skilled wide receiver than Julio Jones. Julio Jones relies on his athleticism more than he does his skill. Sammy Watkins is a very skilled wide receiver, and he'll beat you with his skill, and he'll throw in some athleticism just to beat you even more. I love me some Sammy Watkins. If I'm the St. Louis Rams, I'm taking him at number 2. Then I'll think about Sammy Watkins or Greg Robinson, but ultimately I'm taking number 2 because I think the Rams have been missing this type of wide receiver, and they could use this type of wide receiver, and I think Sammy Watkins could supply a big burst to the St. Louis Rams offense no matter who the quarterback is. But, that remains to be seen. So what are your top 10 wide receivers? Comment down below yours. James Carter TV, I will be back tomorrow for you NBA fans to make some game recaps, and I will be back on... let's make it next Tuesday. I'll be back next Tuesday for my top 10 running backs. Tuesday or Wednesday? Actually, Tuesday, because Wednesday is my mock draft. Tuesday for my top 10 running backs of the 2014 NFL Draft. And then on Wednesday, I'll be back for my NFL mock draft 4.0. So get ready for all that. James Carter TV. I'm out. Peace.